Okay, thank you. It's very unusual for us all, I'm sure, to attend these webinars, but I think they've given us a great opportunity to share ideas in a shorter format and to really have an open discussion and a much more active question and answer session. So I think I thank the team at Transport Events for this opportunity, and I'm very pleased to be involved. As many of you will know from maybe seeing me or hearing about TT Club during the various transport event conferences, we often attend, and insurance is not one of the main topics of these conferences. We are often an addition to a session, trying to outline some of the principles we share with the members of the industry to understand who we are, what we're trying to do as an insurance company to try and make the industry safer. And as various people will say today, we are in challenging times. We are in differently challenging times. And in many ways, the way ports are reacting and having to deal with those challenges is new and unplanned for. And this is one of the biggest challenges people are facing. Just going back to really who I am and why we're here, I actually work for an organization called Thomas Miller, who have been managing insurance companies in the marine industry and marine sector for about 130 years. So some of you who work in shipping, whether it's at the port or the ship or the agent side, will know these logos and company names well. We manage clubs that insure 28 to 30% of the world's ships, more ship agents and more ports and more logistics companies than everybody else in the world. And so that puts us, I feel, in a very good place to try and assist and share our knowledge to try and make operations safer and try and help people deal with challenging times. As I said, from a TT Club perspective and why we're particularly involved with transport events, we do insure somewhere in the region of 46% of the world's ports, or have an insurable interest in 46% of the world's top 100 ports and about 80% of the world's shipping containers. So as you can imagine, not an accident or a dispute goes by without us being involved in some way, shape or form, whether it's from an agent, forwarder, port, container or logistics operator's perspective. But today I'm going to try and talk to you for a few minutes, very briefly, about some of the things that really we've learned or we are learning about accidents and disputes during the COVID-19 period. The graph or the pie chart in the bottom corner there outlines what we see as our normal accidents and claims, 88% of which are down to simple human errors, operational errors. As you see, 7% equipment maintenance and only 5% weather, which we always summarize in saying that 95% of accidents and claims, therefore, are from human error and can therefore be prevented through good procedures and good practices. Interesting, some of the challenges that we're seeing and our members are facing in the current environment actually are dealing with digital and electronic documentation, whether it's through electronic bills of lading or paperless and contactless release of cargoes and documentation. We are seeing an increasing challenge from COVID-19, not through a growth in accidents, but through a growth in operational challenges and potentially mistakes that arise from people trying to adapt into new procedures. And we try and outline how we feel the ports can work to help protect themselves and then react to their customers' needs better. The question we are always asked is, will insurance pay? And that's something I will touch on at the end, because there is no such thing as a single insurance product, as I'm sure you realize. This is a collection of insurance products that should help support people in different ways in the port industry. One of the great lines that was said to me by one of my colleagues recently was that the bill of lading in paper form had survived 2 world wars and the Spanish flu, but COVID-19 might be the thing that finally puts an end to a paper bill of lading. This is a very interesting idea as ports, shipping companies and operators try to learn how to deal with the changing environment into a digital space, a paperless space, a contactless space. We see a lot of people talk about electronic delivery of cargo. We see a lot of people talk about letters of indemnity and people signing them to say, give me my cargo. We cannot get documentation. We cannot get our procedures up to date. A large part of what ports need to do is actually work with their stakeholders to agree procedures with the cargo owners, with the ships, with the various entities to make sure that they are able to deliver on their operational requirements in a safe way, not necessarily physically safe. Here we are talking that's operationally safe, and good practices to make sure that cargo is delivered properly. Remember, that bill of lading, that piece of paper, is a title to the goods in most cases. So the holder of that bit of paper has the right, and if you delivered cargo to the wrong people, these ports are facing significant challenges and potentially claims. Are we seeing people drop more boxes or have more crashes? No, we're not, but we are potentially seeing a greater exposure to fraud. Fraudulent invoices, people coming up with lots of believable excuses why they're not able to deliver their usual practices and need unusual or different support in a paperless and electronic way. We're seeing people lack the face-to-face interaction that they're used to be able to do their operations and deliver on their promises. My question to all port operators and all operators, in fact, is, are your systems fit for purpose, and are your procedures secure and ready for working in COVID-19 and onwards, when we eventually get back to normal, we hope, and we see what procedures are maintained and which procedures are changed and adapted when normal operations go back. What can you do as a port operator? Well, what you can do as a port operator is not that different from what we've been advising you to do for a long time, which is maintain your equipment properly and your property. We've seen growing challenges of operators saying they're not able to maintain their buildings, their equipment, their property as well in the current environment. Now, that maybe goes without problems for a few days or weeks, but it certainly is not a long-term solution. Are your staff trained? Are you able to train your staff, whether it's on-site physically or in the office, potentially working remotely from home? Again, are your operational procedures fit for purpose? Finally, I would be remiss in avoiding the question of, does insurance cover COVID-19? Well, that is a longer discussion, which I'm happy to have with anybody that wishes to have it later on. But in effect, you've got to imagine that COVID-19 is not an accident, and it is not anybody's fault. And therefore, the types of insurances ports and operators have is liability insurance. Well, you are unable to be liable, you are unlikely to be liable for loss and damage, which is COVID-19 specific. You will be responsible as normal, but if your business suffers purely because of COVID-19, there are certain types of insurance policies that will insure you for this, but many will not. Many ports will buy business interruption insurance. This covers you if your business is interrupted and your revenue is potentially lost, or you have an increased cost of working. But normally this follows an accident that damages your property or equipment, not simply that business is down. You've got to imagine that, did COVID-19 prevent a ship getting to the berth? Did COVID-19 damage your crane? Probably not. Finally, the word pandemic is often used. We've heard people talk about force majeure and certain ways of getting out of liability through it being not your responsibility. This is something that's worth checking. I'll finish on a slightly lighter note, that if there is any person in the world that has earned their bonus this year, many events have been cancelled, and something like the Wimbledon Tennis Championship did actually specifically buy insurance following the SARS outbreak for COVID-19 type pandemic problems or pandemic issues that cancelled the championships, and so their entire revenue for this year was covered by insurance. This is not a standard thing and was very expensive, but like many types of insurance, you only see the value of it when you suddenly really need it. And many people, unfortunately, are not properly insured because they didn't predict this type of thing would happen. Mark, I hope I haven't gone on for too long, and I hope that was fairly clear without trying to bring people down too much. And I'll have